Welcome in to the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best soup analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World B. Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 241, the Saddiq Bey episode, as the veteran wingman has donned number 41 throughout the course of his career and did so yet again this season with the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, right out of the gates here, fellas, we've got some breaking news around the league as we learned some things about some head coaches on Sunday. And let's go ahead and start out with the Milwaukee Bucks, who have decided to mutually part ways with head coach Doc Rivers after the Bucks went 32-50 on the season. In 2+ seasons on the Bucks sidelines, Rivers went 97-103, which is the Hall of Famer's only losing record over the 5 franchises he's coached throughout his coaching career. Now the Bucks will be looking to hire their 3rd head coach in the last 3 years, Bruce. So what's your big takeaway? Obviously not a huge shock that they're parting ways with a Hall of Famer, but at the same time, not the greatest of looks.
Well, look, it was only a few days after being named as a 2026 Basketball Hall of Famer that, Doc and the Bucks decided to move on. And, like you said, going 32-50, it really didn't come as a big surprise. Now, the Bucks coaching situation has pretty much deteriorated steadily since they fired Mike Budenholzer after a 58-win season in 2023. Adrian Griffin replaced him, lasted just 43 games, even though his record was 30-13. Pretty good. So many of the team's moves, it seems, have been aimed at placating Giannis, especially when they brought Damian Lillard on board for 2 short and unsuccessful seasons. And as much as I love Giannis, it's time for the Bucks to move on, get what they can for him, and start operating their franchise properly rather than reacting to their fears about what Giannis wants, even when it maybe isn't in the best long-term interest of the Bucks.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It is a tough turning point in the Bucks franchise as of right now, and it looks like they're going to move on to a new chapter here soon. World B, the Doc Rivers news couldn't have been too much of a surprise to you, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on the decision that was made very quickly here.
No, it wasn't a surprise. The surprise came that he was hired at all. If you remember, we were all pretty surprised that he got that job. He had a nice, we thought, run developing at ESPN and ABC as an analyst, and that lasted half a season. It's, I feel really bad. We're kind of responsible for this franchise just going right in the pooper because, as you know, it was our interview with Giannis a couple of years ago that precipitated all these moves that coming one after the other and ended up being just one disastrous decision after another. I can't understand how a franchise that is within the last 5 years has won an NBA title and everything seems to be going their way ends up like this right now. It's just unbelievable fall from grace right here. And this offseason is going to be really interesting for this team. But, as you mentioned, if you include the playoffs, Doc is 11 games under 500 as a coach with the Bucks. So it's just been you thought this year was going to be a better year with Miles Turner coming in and Damian Lillard gone and Giannis maybe to have a rebirth, and just there was never really a point where you just saw, oh, they're back. And now this franchise is at a real crossroads coming up this offseason.
Yeah, the only 2 things I want to add on this is, number one, I mean, the facts are the facts as far as Doc Rivers being below 500, and it's the first time ever in his career having done so. Of course, if he had Giannis, I think he would have at least been 500. We can at least safely say that. I mean, given the amount of games Giannis missed this year, he would have definitely been 500 as the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. And secondly, keep an eye on Taylor Jenkins. That is my pick for the Milwaukee Bucks' next head coaching job. I think he'd do an outstanding job with this group. He's a guy that was obviously with the Memphis Grizzlies, and he turned lemons into lemonade there with some of the injury problems that they had. And he's a former assistant in Milwaukee under Coach Mike Budenholzer. So he's looking for a new opportunity, and I think this one would kind of fit the bill.
But who's going to be in the lineup for him next season is the other question.
AJ Green, who had 11 3-pointers, broke the franchise record for 3-pointers made in the game. He'll be there.
Oh, goody.
Well, thanks for the great transition, World, because oh, goody it is in Sacramento, because much more surprise to probably all of us here. Reportedly, the Sacramento Kings plan on retaining their head coach in Doug Christie. I thought for sure he was a long gone man at the end of the season. After the 82nd game, I thought he'd be the first guy let go. But general manager Scott Perry and the Kings leadership believe that Christie never had a fair opportunity with a healthy roster. And to be fair, I did look into this, and they are, in fact, correct. Sacramento's projected starting lineup to start the season never played a single minute together this season. But, Worldby, I'll start with you on this one. Curious to get your thoughts here. Do you think that's enough to keep Christie around? I feel like we didn't see much from this group all season.
Well, this situation, when you talk about the Bucks, it's their coaching situation with Doc. It's a what were you thinking sort of mentality. With the Kings, it's what are you thinking? It's really
are you thinking?
That's another good one. All legitimate points about how they didn't have their lineup together, they didn't have a roster, but to be fair, they were above 500 last season when he came aboard in 51 games, 27 wins. Now he plays 82 games this year, he gets 22 wins. So it doesn't. There is some legitimacy to what you were saying about the lineup, but honestly, are we looking at everybody on this lineup? You have everybody healthy that we're looking at an upper tier team. Are we looking at a franchise that's on the way up? It's an aging team with not a whole lot behind it in terms of youth, and there's some, but not a whole lot. And I don't know where Doug Christie, what the future is. I don't know what the franchise is really going to do going forward.
Yeah, me neither. And the only thing I can think of, honestly, is maybe Vivek doesn't want to pay a new coach. He's already got Christie under contract. He knows his team's not going anywhere. And he's like, why would I waste a couple $1 million when I can just keep this guy employed and we can stink again next year?
Absolutely right.
Bruce, what's your thoughts on this one?
You're basically taking the words right out of my mouth. I mean, this franchise is a dumpster fire. And if I were Vivek Ranadive, I would have fired Christie in March. But Christie is not going to be fired. He's at the lower end of the pay scale among NBA head coaches, and management probably likes that a lot because they have some god-awful contracts on their books. Zach LaVine's on the hook for like $48 million next year. Domantas Sabonis has got 2 more years at about $94 million. Those are 2 awful contracts. So maybe the problem isn't Christie at all, but frequently the head coach does take the fall. It's hard not to think that Ranadive doesn't want to spend big on the coach, Ross, as you said. So Christie is secure for now, but if the team has another year like this year's 22-60 debacle, the great Kings fans, and they are great fans,
they are,
may stop showing up, and that ain't going to bode well for Christie after next season.
Yeah, they better hope to be lighten the beam a little bit more than they have this year. Now let's get into one big picture thought that we all had from this season. Before we start talking playoffs and get into playoff mode, let's wrap things up with one big picture thought on this season. Bruce, lead us off.
It'd be tempting to choose an on-court story for my big picture thought, but mine has to do with the balancing act between load management and the issue of the 65-game minimum for postseason awards and honors. When resting stars in key games was a big issue a few years ago, the league acted to discourage that practice by instituting the 65-game minimum for players to be eligible for all NBA teams and postseason awards. It was thought that by requiring players to miss no more than 17 regular season games, the load management issue would be solved. But as can happen when making changes like this one, there are unintended consequences that are not apparent until they happen. So if a player misses 18 to 20 games due to legitimate injuries, they'd still play in 75% or more of their team's games, and that should be enough to make them eligible for all NBA and postseason awards. And if a player, let's say, misses 18 games, but their team goes 50-14 when they play and say 10-8 without him, that leaves the team with a 60-win season, but also leaves their best player out in the cold regarding all NBA teams and awards that could have a major impact on their salary, Cade Cunningham being one of the examples. So if the 65-game minimum becomes a 62-game minimum, as I had suggested a few weeks ago, the following players would be eligible for All-NBA. Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, and Cade Cunningham, to name a few. The League and the Players Association should reduce the minimum to 62 games, which still represents more than 75% of a team's games. That would be a fairer number, and that, to me, would be go a long way towards solving a very sticky issue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is a sticky issue, Bruce, and well done there, because I think that is one of the bigger pictures of this past season. World B?
Well, part of me wanted to use, in terms of Encore, the one biggest picture were three teams that just had really amazing turnarounds in season to get to the postseason. That being the Clippers out west, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Charlotte Hornets. Three amazing turnarounds in season, which you never would have expected from either of them. For me, I started thinking about it. I know the Thunder. You could easily say they've been the most impressive team. They have the most wins. They're the defending champs. They look dominating at the start of the season like we've never seen. But honest to God, for me, the Detroit Pistons were the most impressive team this season. They had 60 wins. They had a really good last season when they got into the playoffs after 14 wins the previous season. And they lost to the Knicks in 6 hard-fought games. And I remember in the preseason we were doing everything. It was a wait-and-see out there. I wanted to see if they can make that next step. And, boy, they made the next step. They were clearly the best team in the East all season. They had the best defense. They had their most physical team. I wanted to see them take that next step, and they absolutely did. And now are the big favorites, I think, in the East. Not the big favorite, but a favorite in the East to come out of there and get to the NBA Finals. It's really been an impressive performance by them all season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, World B, and I think that was another fun big picture from throughout this year. Now, I'm chalking up this past season as the final year of a lot of things. We've already touched on the final year of Doc Rivers' coaching career, but from a league-wide perspective, it was a final year of the NBA Cup taking place in Vegas. It was a final year wondering whether the deserving city of Seattle would ever get an NBA franchise again. Seems like that's happening. Final year wondering if Vegas might be a destination for a team, as it seems like they're going to get the expansion nod as well. And hopefully, if we're all extremely lucky, this will be our final year suffering through epic tanking jobs throughout the league post-All-Star break, because it seems like Adam Silver's dead serious about doing something to kind of course correct what we saw for the later half of this year. And hopefully it was also the final year of some gambling news for a while. I mean, I know it's going to come up once again at some point, but the way we started the season this year with Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, just to name a few, wasn't the greatest of looks. And hopefully we can put that behind us here and next season get off to a stronger start PR-wise. So hopefully we can put that behind us and chalk this one up as finally it's over. Let's move on to an exciting playoffs. And we're going to get right into that right now because we have our play-in preview starting out with the games on Tuesday night. And in the East, we've got the 9th-seeded Charlotte Hornets hosting the Miami Heat in a win-or-go-home matchup, World B. How you feeling about your Hornets having to face a team very familiar with the plan and playoff situation?
Well, if you're a fan of the Hornets like I am, you can't really ask for a whole lot more from the team. I mean, 33-15 over their final 48 games after they started 11-23. What an amazing turnaround, as I mentioned before. What an absolutely fantastic turnaround. They have arguably the best starting 5 in the league. They dominated their opponents when those guys were on the court. LaMelo Ball, Concanipple, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Moussa Diabate absolutely are the best offensive lineup in the league and the most dominating one in terms of net efficiency. 1-3 versus the Heat, but 2 of those losses, I should say, came before they started their turnaround back in November. So, it's really I like the Hornets in this one. It better not be a close game, though. I'll tell you that, because the one thing I've been down on with the Hornets this year is they have an impressive array of victories, during their run, but not too many real close ones. They've blown some teams out, but if the game gets tight, I think advantage Miami.
All right, Bruce?
Miami won 3 of the 4 matchups during the regular season. The games in Charlotte, Miami averaged almost 133 points in their 3 wins, but were held to 106 in their lone loss. Miami was hotter during the first part of the season, but as World B mentioned, Charlotte has been better as of late. The Heat lost 10 of their final 15 games, while Charlotte won 10 of their final 14. So it appears momentum is in Charlotte's favor, but I'm taking the Heat on the road. As I've said many times, the Heat are always better than you think they're going to be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to side with World B on this one. I think there's going to be a buzz in the air. The Charlotte Hornets are in a play-in tournament situation. It's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere. They got all the momentum with the home crowd, the home energy, and I think they're going to take care of business and send the Miami Heat packing for South Beach, because I see the Hornets pulling out a big victory here and just be the next greatest experience for this young group to take the next step forward together. Now, out west on Tuesday, we've got the 7th-seeded Phoenix Suns hosting the 8th-seed Portland Trailblazers, with the winner advancing to the first-round series against the 2nd-seed San Antonio Spurs. So, Bruce, I'll ask you first on this one. Who do you see scooting on over to the first-round series in this one, the Suns or the Blazers?
The young Blazers visit the Suns, and Phoenix did have a better regular season record, but Portland finished pretty strong with 10 wins in their last 14 games. Phoenix lost 10 of its final 16 games down the stretch. So while the Suns won 2 of the 3 regular season matchups, I'm actually going to pick Portland to advance.
All right. World B?
Yeah, it's a weird situation because the best players for both teams really didn't see a lot of time against their opponents. Devin Booker only played in 1 game, and Deni there for Portland played in 1 game and played like a minute of the next game before he got hurt. So it's really not – it's hard to see which team had their best players against the other. I'm going to go with the Suns. They neither offense has been great in the season series, even though I know Phoenix has won 2 out of 3. But the Suns did average almost 129 points a game in the first 2 matchups with the Blazers, and they ended up with 77 in the one in March, which was just an absolute disaster. Go figure that one. I think they're both 2 really good defense, much improved defense, but nobody's improved their defense more than the Suns from last year to this year. So I'm going to take the Suns. They really have – if everybody's on the court now, they really have a solid group, I think, and I think enough talent to get through at least this game.
Yeah, I'm siding with you here, Will B. I like the Phoenix Suns at home. Devin Booker leading the charge here. It's not going to be an easy task, though, against that Portland Trailblazers defense that, plays hard every night and is a team that will pick up full court. I think they're really going to exhaust Devin Booker in this one. Another interesting piece to this that I'm looking forward to seeing is the big man game, because the Portland Trailblazers absolutely should dominate them from a front court position. Donovan Clingan, the Suns really have no answers for him. But I think just overall, pace of the game, firing all cylinders, I like Phoenix to score the ball a little bit better than Portland, despite Portland's strong defense. Now, moving on to Wednesday night, Bruce, we've got the 7th seed Philadelphia 76ers hosting the 8th seed Orlando Magic, with the winner moving on to face the 2-seeded Celtics in round 1. So the loser will face the loser of this game will face the loser of the Hornets Heat matchup for a chance to secure the 8th seed to face the Pistons in the first round. But my question to you is, who would you rather face in this one? That's what I'm really curious about. 76ers or Magic, and then who do you think is going to ultimately win this game?
Well, these teams finished with identical 45 and 37 records, and the Magic played Boston on Sunday night, and they looked absolutely dreadful, uninspired, unmotivated. It was a game they really kind of needed to win, and they got beaten and torched by people like Baylor Shireman, Ron Harper Jr., and Luka Garza. I mean, Boston didn't even play its 7 top scorers in this game, okay? They all sat on the bench. The Magic just can't shoot threes. They were just 28% from downtown. They just look awful. Now, Philly, they have Tyrese Maxey. He's been brilliant all season. VJ Edgecombe And, that's a dynamic backcourt, which is going to provide a real challenge for Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black and Desmond Bane. So I like Philly in the winner-take-all game. Their prize is going to be a date with the Celtics. But quite honestly, as a Celtics fan, I'd rather play Orlando. But Philly should win this game, I think.
All right, World B.
My feeling on this would be a whole lot different if Joel Embiid was healthy enough to play. And honestly, if he was on the court healthy enough to play, they're probably not in the 7th spot. Let's be honest. They're such a better team with him. This is what we talked about before the season started when we were breaking down the 76ers. What kind of team are they going to have? What kind of season are they going to have? What's their over-under on wins? It was all predicated on the health of this team, specifically Joel Embiid. And now we get to this situation here where they be really, really solid in the playoffs, except the health of Joel Embiid. So Bruce is dead on about the Magic. They're a big underachieving season for them. It may cost Jamahl Mosely his job in the offseason, which is kind of disappointing. But at the same time, it looks like a lot of times like they've tuned him out. Some of the performances, Bruce put it best, uninspiring. I mean, you can't beat the Celtics reserves with your everything on the line. They should be hosting this game. They could be hosting this game this week if they beaten Boston on Sunday. So that being said, I am going with the Magic. I just think there's just a little too much talent on this team. I think they'll turn it around. They got a little hot towards the end of the season. Granted, they were not exactly playing a who's of tough opponents. They were playing teams going in the tank or teams that were on cruise control. But they won them, and they're in this spot. And I think Bruce mentioned, think about this. Last season, before they got Desmond Bey, they were the worst shooting team from three, less than 32%. They go and get Desmond Bey. We all thought it was going to turn things around, and they improved their standing in three-point percentage all the way to 27th. So and Desmond Bey's got his act together. It's just everybody else. I think Franz Wagner playing better as he got going in April once he returned. I think he's going to make a difference. They have a lineup again. So I'll take the Magic in this game.
All right. I'm going to side with Bruce on this one because I'm a firm believer. Number one, it's hard to win in Philly in general. Number two, it's really hard for the Orlando Magic to make shots. And I think going into this one, a win-or-go-home game, give me the backcourt of Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, the young blood. I think Tyrese Maxey's reached the stage of his career. You know, he's entering his prime right now. He's willing and able to take over a game in times that he needs to. This is a time that he's going to need to do it. And I know that Suggs is a very talented defender. Bane can play some defense. But, if my money was on the line on this one, I'm going with Philadelphia at home. Just a tough place to play and a tough team, despite the fact that Embiid is out of the lineup. Now, out west, we've got a California play-in battle with the Golden State Warriors visiting the Clippers in Los Angeles. The winner of this one will play the loser of the Suns-Blazers matchup for a chance to secure the 8th seed in round one of the playoffs to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. Bruce, who do you like, the Dubs or the Clips?
Well, the Clips have been a 500 team over the last month, but Kawhi Leonard has had the best scoring numbers of his career. Golden State has staggered into the postseason. They've lost 15 of their last 20 games since the first week of March, and I see little reason to expect much of anything out of them. The Clips should take this one at home, move on to face the loser of the Portland-Phoenix game for the right to lose to OKC in the first round.
Okay. World B?
As I mentioned earlier in this show, Clippers have been one of the best stories of this season, one of the most amazing turnarounds. 6-21. They went from 6-21 as a laughingstock all the way to 42 wins, a winning record. So really impressive. Their defense got a whole lot better. And Bruce mentioned, Kawhi Leonard's having – why he won't get more consideration for MVP is beyond me. He's had that kind of a season. I just think there's a whole lot more healthy talent on the Clippers, veteran guys that are healthy and ready to go. And I think they're going to – I think they're going to cruise in this game. The play-in matchup tends to get a lot of blowouts here for whatever reason, but I think this is definitely going to be one that's a blowout. Unfortunately for Golden State, I would like to see Steph Curry continue on one more time, but it'll have to be next season.
I mean, you talk about the blowouts in these playing matchups. Well, let's face it, it's because there's no load management. There's no tomorrow in some of these games. You got to keep swinging and making sure that I mean, a 20-point game in an NBA game is not much. That can be erased in just 8 to 10 minutes of play with some good shooting and some stops. So, and these, you got to slug people to death in order to be sure you secure the victory. So I think that's why we see some of those offset spreads there. As for me, I'm going to take the Clippers in this one as well. I think with Kawhi Leonard healthy, Curry's been in and out of the lineup. I really don't know what we're getting from on a day-to-day basis. No, not to mention, I don't know what we're getting from their rotation in general. I mean, they're relying on some guys that are pretty iffy at times. So give me the veteran leaders. Give me the Brook Lopez's, the Chris Dunn's, and, of course, I'll ride with Kawhi Leonard handling his business at home in this one. Now, moving on to our round one previews. Let's start out east here, Bruce. We've got the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. What are your thoughts looking into this matchup?
Well, the Cavs finished with a better record than the Raptors, but the Raptors won all 3 of the regular season matchups against Cleveland. So, since James Harden joined the Cavs, they've played well, but James has been known to flame out in the postseason. And I feel like Cleveland has more talent with Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, and Harden, but the Raptors are going to make them work for their points. Cavs should have enough, though, to get by Toronto. I say Cavaliers in 7.
All right. Will be.
I got the Cavaliers in 6. They were a disappointment for a good part of this season, at least half the season. They hadn't gotten it together offensively the way they did last season when they had the best offense in the league in terms of efficiency and shooting. And then they started to get really, started to improve. They started to get, whether it was, healthy or whatever, they started to really look like the team of last year. Then they got James Harden. Then they really picked it up. They just have a solid lineup all around. They're starting to play like it overall, the last half of the year. I think that those 6 games, because I agree, Bruce, Toronto's been a really solid, surprising, quietly surprising team this year. They haven't gotten a lot of pub. We haven't discussed them a whole lot this season. They're not one of the glamour teams or whatever, and yet here they are in the playoffs. So, but I think Cavaliers have enough experience. There's a lot of pressure on this team too, by the way. The Cavaliers have not lived up to expectations since LeBron left in terms of getting far in the postseason. But this is going to be one round where I think they're going to actually live up to expectations and get out of there. Cavs in 6.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's so much pressure on the Cleveland Cavaliers this year, especially given the splash at the trade deadline to acquire James Harden, who has fit in extremely well with this group in his time there so far. I know everyone likes to make fun of James Harden's playoff history, but this is not a round where I think the Cavs are going to mess around, and I think James Harden will excel in this one. I think he's going to be a tough matchup for Quickly, Jamal Shed, whoever they kind of put out there, Jacoby Walter, all those guys are going to really struggle containing James Harden off the pick and rolls. I look at the Cavs winning this one in 5 games. I think they are in serious mode of, hey, we can't mess around. Let's just take this first round matchup extremely seriously, get done with the Raptors, and focus on what lies ahead, because the next series is not going to be as easy. And let's go ahead and talk about that group, because that is the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks. World B. Curious to get your thoughts on this one. I mean, going into the last week of the season, I feel like Atlanta would probably be like the last team you'd want to play right now.
You would think so, and there's a lot to be said for that. The way the Knicks were up and down this season, Atlanta's going to be that trendy pick. People are going to look at how much they improved after Trae Young got dealt, and all of it's legit. They've had a really solid turnaround. I mentioned at the top, they're one of those 3 teams that were just had a remarkable turnaround. Not just their record, they were one of the best teams in the league, offensively, defensively, really all. They got an all-star in Jalen Johnson. I mean, super, super guys, veteran guys to lead them. But you go back to that matchup they had in Atlanta against the Knicks about a week ago with a lot on the line, and it was a close game, tight throughout, and the Knicks were able to make enough stops and pull away. For all the talent that Atlanta has, Jalen Johnson didn't step up in that game against the Knicks there last week, and when they needed to. He missed a real chippy layup at the end and didn't take over a game. The Knicks, for all the issues, all the criticisms you want to get, and it's legit. I'm not disputing that. but they do have a guy like Jalen Brunson. They do have a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns. They do have a group that is built to at least they're supposed to go to the finals. At least they can get past this first round, because if not, boy, do you know what's going to hit the fan on that franchise?
Yeah, it really would. Bruce?
These guys played each other 3 times during the regular season. New York won 2 of them. And, New York likes a slower pace, which is usually playoff style. Atlanta likes to get out there and run, and I could definitely see the Knicks defense frustrating their running game a little bit. So Cat was a monster against the Hawks this season, and Jalen Brunson also put up some big numbers. Jalen Johnson, tough cover, but the Knicks have some wing defenders who are going to make him work for his points. So both teams played well down the stretch, but the Knicks have more postseason experience, and I expect them to handle the Hawks. New York in 6.
All right, I echo that as well, Bruce. I've got the Knicks in 6, but it's going to be some very entertaining ball games, because I don't think it's going to be an easy task for the Knicks to take this Hawks team out on a night-to-night basis throughout the series. But I like the veteran experience that New York has. As you mentioned, Bruce, their perimeter defense, they've got some dogs out there to really make it hard, be physical with a guy like Jalen Johnson, who has struggled in the past against New York, definitely might struggle under the bright lights of the playoffs for his first opportunity. So I like the Knicks to take care of business and move on to the second round.
By the way, I got the Knicks in 7, just so you know. Okay. I didn't say the game. This is the only series I think is going to go 7 games.
All right. And that certainly could be the case as well. Heading to the Western Conference, let's go ahead and talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. Because, Bruce, I feel like every year these guys match up at some point. Every season, I feel like we've talked about the Wolves and Nuggets in a playoff series.
I think this could be a first-round series to remember. I mean, Denver won 3 out of the 4 against the Wolves during the regular season. Jokic, of course, torched the Wolves, averaging more than 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 11 assists in the 4 games. Minnesota is going to need nuclear Naz Reid to regain his shooting touch, which went south the last couple months. And if Anthony Edwards comes back healthy, he cancels out Jamahl Murray. The teams know each other well. They've met in the playoffs twice in the past 3 seasons. Both teams can put up points, but the Wolves may be a bit better defensively. However, I see this as a home court series, Nuggets in 7.
All right, World B.
This is a weird one, too. This is the kind of series we love. This is why we love the Western Conference, because you get first-round matchups like this. This should be a conference finals matchup, but we get it in the first round. I have Minnesota winning. There's no real reason to, but I'll do it anyway. In 6 games here, as Bruce mentioned, you're talking about the Nuggets with the best offense in the league, and they have, in my money here, the MVP of the league in Joker. And I just think that the defense for Minnesota, the experience for Minnesota, should be enough to get them a surprise win in Denver and come back and close it out in Minnesota. The issue I have with Denver is the same as it always is. Who steps up after Joker? What kind of team are they going to have when he goes to the bench for those 6 minutes or 7 minutes in a game? Because it's really a huge drop-off when he's not on the court. And if they can, nobody can figure out how to contain him, I get it. But if there's ways to slow him down even a little bit, I think there's enough depth on Minnesota to get one in Denver, come back, and take the series in Minnesota's Wolves in 6.
All right. I'm going Nuggets in 7. I think it's going to go to the distance. But I got to ride with the Joker. I mean, one of the top MVP candidates this year. He's not my pick, but he's right up there as my second in line for that award. I think when it's playoff times, reputation-wise for a guy like the Joker, he puts on the front that he doesn't care. I think he would care about being a first-round exit and what that would look like for his career. So I see him, pushing his team, bringing him to another level here in the playoffs. And it's going to be no easy task against the Timberwolves, who match up extremely well with this Nuggets team. But when in doubt, I'll trust the Joker. Now, moving on to the other series out west. This one should be an epic one as well, Bruce. We've got KD and the Rockets facing off against LeBron and the Lakers. I know it's 2026, but it's still a blast to see these 2 stars go up head-to-head in the first round.
No doubt. And, with the physical condition of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves kind of tenuous, that potentially leaves LeBron James as the leading man once again, after he sort of allowed himself to become the third option. Now he's right back up there at the top. Now, DeAndre Ayton is going to have his hands full against Alpi Şengün. That's going to be a huge advantage for the Rockets. The Lakers, well, they hope to get Doncic and Reeves back, but they're going to need time to shake off that rust a little bit. And the playoffs don't really permit you any extra time to shake off rust. You got to be ready to go from the jump. With Kevin Durant, Şengün, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith, they're going to be too much for a depleted LA team to handle. Lakers have home court, but it ain't going 7, so it won't matter. Rockets in 6.
Wow. All right. Will B?
I think this is the only series in the first round that'll be a sweep. I think it's the Rockets in 4.
Wow.
Lakers have had a great season, unexpected season, given, the way we thought, things are going to work out in that conference. Man, who is going to step up for LeBron, to help out LeBron with Luka and Austin Reeves out? I don't see it. I don't see anybody that's going to step up and score consistently. You're going to need another 20-point scorer, I feel like. And Houston's got one of the best defenses in the league. They have one of the best players of all time in the postseason now with Kevin Durant. I just think they dominate the glass better than anybody in the last 30 years. They have one of the best offensive rebounding teams we've had. So I don't see how the Lakers are going to win a game here. So I got the Rockets in 4.
Wow. No love for King James. You don't think he wins one game?
Not against this team. I just how is he going to do it? I mean, let's put out here, if they win this series somehow and beat the Rockets, and LeBron does it on himself, Bruce will be, Bruce's point about who's the greatest player of all time. I think it may be cemented with a first round victory like this, doing it on your own. But until I see more from the other guys besides LeBron, for me, it's Houston in 4.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the Rockets in 6 because I got a little bit more faith in King James and the Lakers to find a way to win a couple games. I don't know how that's going to happen. I think LeBron could totally take the script here of, if I could do something that no one thinks I can against the Houston Rockets, it's only going to continue to help my legacy. So I think that's food for thought for King James heading into this first round matchup. I think he's going to go out respectably in this one, and he's going to push it to 6 games, so it's not a complete walkover here. But got the Rockets advancing, unfortunately, due to all the injuries to the Lakers. Now, last questions here. Let's think about those 1 seeds in each conference here. Bruce, we'll start with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Do you think they will be challenged in round 1?
Well, the Thunder won 19 of their last 22 games down the stretch, including 2 meaningless losses in their final 2 games. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the way, got a great supporting cast, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Isaiah Hartenstein, a bunch of perimeter defenders who never let up. I could see the Thunder sweeping whoever they play in the first round and having a tougher time against Houston in round 2 if they get by the Lakers. And then we all lick our chops, anticipating the Thunder and Spurs in the Western Finals.
Yes. World B, what's your thoughts? Do you think OKC can be challenged in round 1?
I think it'll be the Clippers, and I think the Clippers will be able to take a game off of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City had that great start, 25-1, or 24-1 when we saw it at the beginning. Then it kind of slowed down when they started to play some actual teams, and then they picked it.
I think we lost our guy here, Bruce. So I'm going to pick up where World B left off. And I think that the Thunder will not be challenged in round 1 because this is a group that, much like the Cavs in the Eastern Conference, I think they're focused on saving up as much energy as they can for the San Antonio Spurs. World B, it looks like you're back with us. Would you like to finish your thought?
Say that again.
Would you like to finish your thoughts on the Oklahoma City Thunder before we move on?
I just think the Thunder the last 8 weeks look like the dominant team we saw at the beginning of the year, and I think that's going to carry over into this first round. I see them winning in 5 games.
All right. Bruce, next up, we've got the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, things have gotten a little the door's a little bit more open of opportunity to knocking off the Pistons with the status of Cade Cunningham. So what's your thoughts? Do you think they could be challenged in round one in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
The only early round potential playoff opponent that had success against the Pistons is Miami. The Heat beat the Pistons twice, and Detroit's only win over the Heat was by 3 points. So, if Cade Cunningham comes back strong, there's nobody on Miami that can handle him. Jalen Duren and Bam Adebayo would mostly cancel each other out. But, if Philly, Orlando, or Charlotte plays the Pistons, Detroit should advance pretty easily.
All right. World B?
I think it'll be Detroit and Charlotte again. I think there'll be a lot of fun given the fisticuffs we saw,
yes,
a couple months ago or whatever. But at the end of the day, as much as I like the Hornets, they've really shown that whether it's been them at their best or at their worst, they haven't been able to handle the Pistons. They had a big game, that game where they had to fight. The Hornets weren't able to pull away and get the win. They met it after that, and the Pistons really had their way with Charlotte again. They're the more physical team. So I think it'll be Charlotte against the Pistons, and I think the Pistons in 5.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you as well. I think the Pistons will certainly be able to roll over whoever's in front of them here in round one, with or without a fully healthy Cade Cunningham, as they showed over the course of the last month of the season. Even without Cade, this team stuck together, played some really good basketball, and seemed to have a real good team identity, good cohesion, no matter who may be out of that lineup. So props to the Pistons all season long, and I think that's only going to benefit them here in round one. All right, now it's time to take a look back and reflect on our preseason predictions, because we had a lot of fun back in October making all these picks, and now we've got to circle back and see how all those picks worked out. I have a feeling Bruce is pretty proud of what he did on his card this year. So let's go ahead and start out by discussing our best preseason predictions. And Bruce, why don't you lead us off, because I know you had a couple that seemed pretty good.
Well, when we did our preseason predictions, I was riding the San Antonio Spurs train before most others in the media. Last season, they were 34-48, with Greg Popovich retiring after 5 games. Mitch Johnson takes over, had to grind through a very tough rookie season as a head coach. Wemby missed 36 games, but Stephon Castle emerged as the Rookie of the Year. Chris Paul was running on fumes at that point, and eventually he left the team. De'Aaron Fox came on board late in the season and never really had time to play with Wemby and develop any chemistry. So I always felt that this year the Spurs were going to break out. My prediction of 50 wins was considered a very aggressive move, but the Spurs blew by that number, finished with 62 in the rugged West. I saw a team with a unicorn in Wemby, aggressive guards in Fox and Castle, chemistry guys like Devin Vassell, Luke Cornett, and Harrison Barnes, and 2 guys who actually played all 82 games this season, Julian Champagny and Keldon Johnson. And they also had this beast off the bench named Dylan Harper, the rookie. There are a handful of franchises that have a culture that endures over long periods of time. The Celtics were the first, and of course the Lakers. Others like the Heat, the Warriors, and the Nuggets all have had enduring cultures. But when it comes to franchise culture, the Spurs are way up there, and they take a backseat to nobody.
Yeah. Big props to you, Bruce. You were on the Spurs train well before either World B and I, that's for sure. World B, after looking back on your preseason predictions, what was your favorite?
Well, this was tough. And not because, and the complete opposite of Bruce, who had many to choose from. I had a select few to choose from. There was not a whole lot I got right. Surprised if this were the Survivor show, you guys would have voted me out for the way I made these predictions. Really, the only one I can think of that I was on the money about was we did our over-under preview, and I said the Nets would finish under the over-under win total of 20.5 wins. I got that one right by a whole half a win. So that's about as good as it was for me. It could still be correct now, because I did predict a Nuggets-Knicks championship. I didn't, I don't know. I still got that. It's not my pick any longer, but that was a preseason pick. But in true me fashion, I also thought the Knicks would challenge 60 wins. I long ago gave up on that notion.
Yeah, well, in my big picture of this season, a couple of minutes ago there, one of the other final things I forgot to say is that was the final year that you were going to give the Milwaukee Bucks a bunch of love too, because I believe you had Giannis as the MVP and the Bucks having a really good season. And I should have appreciated it back in October when you said that, because I don't think you're going to have many nice things to say about the Bucks and the season outlook next year. So I should have appreciated it this year.
One of many I was off on.
Yeah. Well, I love the optimism at the time. Now, for mine it happens to be coincided with Bruce's, because Bruce and I both took Deni Avdija for Most Improved Player. And while the Hawks' Nickeil Alexander-Walker is another very deserving candidate and the current Vegas favorite to win the award, Deni had himself quite an impressive season. He even made his first All-Star team, something that Alexander-Walker can't say he did. So, Bruce, I think we should be very proud of our Deni selection.
Deni has been spectacular, and he has been the leader of that Trailblazers team who, could actually win that play-in game and move on to the real playoffs.
All right. And Bruce, why don't you tell us your worst preseason prediction?
I thought the Phoenix Suns would be absolute garbage this season, but they were far better than I was expecting. They did struggle to score. They finished in the bottom 5 in points per game. In fact, even the brutal Wizards averaged more points per game than them. But they were a solid defensive team. They held their own on the boards. They won the turnover battle most nights. And when you play solid defense and take care of the ball, you can overcome other shortcomings. Devin Booker missed 18 games, but was still number 9 in the league in scoring. Dillon Brooks, Grayson Allen, Colin Gillespie, they were solid. Mark Williams, when healthy, was productive. So congratulations to Coach Jordan Ott and the Suns for making me look bad.
All right, World B. Which one have you filtered out to be your worst of all your predictions?
Where to begin? I mean, I could have gone with saying the Pacers were going to be better than we predicted with Tyrese Halliburton out. That was way wrong. I thought the Celtics would have a transition season, would not make the playoffs. That was wrong. But thanks to the Milwaukee Bucks, that they get the award for my worst prediction of the season. I thought they would finish. I thought they'd have a rebound year, and they finished 4th in the West. They would host, or in the East, they would host a first-round series. And to recap, they finished 18 games under 500, missed the postseason, lost their coach, and they're probably going to lose their star in soft season. You could not possibly get any more incorrect on a prediction from anybody on the Believe Network than I did on the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, you know what? Again, I appreciated the optimism, World B, and sometimes you miss. So better luck next year. As for my worst preseason prediction, mine was running it back and predicting that this was the season that Jamahl Mosely of the Orlando Magic would take home Coach of the Year honors. I took him for Coach of the Year predictions last year, and I took him again this year because I was like, listen, they got a shooter in Desmond Bane. They're bringing in a veteran presence. They emptied the trade chips, getting rid of all their draft capital to acquire this guy. They must know he's the best fit for Mosley's system. Everything's going to work out. And lo and behold, they end up finishing 8th overall, 45-37 on this season. Nowhere close to being in consideration for Coach of the Year. In fact, we've already mentioned it on the show, he might lose his job at the end of the year. So not the hottest prediction from yours truly. Now let's get to our award winners, Bruce. And who is your MVP?
When we did those preseason predictions, I said the MVP would be Victor Wembanyama, and my partners' collective jaws dropped when I said it. But I had a feeling it was kind of a possibility, and as the season has progressed, I feel more certain than ever that Wemby does, in fact, deserve the MVP award. Is he going to get it? Maybe not. Joker and SGA, not to mention Jaylen Brown, are all legit candidates, but Wemby does things I have never seen on the court before. He owns the paint on defense, and that means you better plan on making some outside shots if you expect to beat the Spurs, because the paint is closed. 62 wins in the West, 4 wins in 5 games against the defending champs in OKC. Wemby made it all happen, and he is my MVP.
All right, World B.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few shows ago. This is such a tight race. and it's turning out to be that way. There was a point where I thought Jaylen Brown had a legitimate case for MVP. There was a point where I predicted Luka Doncic would come away, the way he was playing, would come away with the MVP until he got hurt. SGA is going to be a choice. But for me, if it's not Wemby or Joker, I'm really disappointed. For me, it's Joker. And the reason is simply he led the league. He had maybe his best season ever. He's won 2 already. He maybe had his best season ever. And first player to lead in rebounds per game and assists per game in the season. I mean, it's a historic season by one of the all-time greats. I think that gets him the nod.
All right. And I'm going to go with the guy that's going to make you want to vomit, will be. I've got SGA winning MVP. At the beginning of the season, I had the Joker, but I think SGA becomes the first Canadian to go back-to-back with the MVP award since Steve Nash. I mean, given the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder finished with the league's best record yet again this year, 64-18, SGA led the way the whole time, set a record for most 20-plus point games in consecutive nights. I think SGA is, again, the winner this year, especially given some of the injuries that went on elsewhere. I know SGA had his own set of injuries, but the way he was able to continue to lead this team with most of the year being without Jalen Williams out there on the court, I think he is another well-deserved candidate. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but if it was my vote, I'm going with SGA. Now, next up, Bruce, we've got Rookie of the Year honors.
When we did our preseason predictions, it looked all but certain that Cooper Flagg would be the top rookie. And despite the Mavericks' poor record, Flagg did not disappoint. He played 70 games, averaged 21 points, nearly 7 boards, and more than 4 assists. His chief rival for the award is Con Knippel, whose 3-point shooting and solid floor game helped the Hornets make the play-in. Now, in a perfect world, Flagg and Knippel would share the Rookie of the Year award, as Dave Cowens and Jeff Petrie did back in 1971, as Jason Kidd and Grant Hill also did in 1995, and Steve Francis and Elton Brand did it again in 2000. So there is some significant precedent for Rookie of the Year to be co-Rookies of the Year. So that's what I'm hoping will happen, but if you're making me choose, I'm still picking Flagg with Knippel second.
All right, World B.
Really one of the best rookie classes we've seen in a long, long time. There's so many quality players that have produced throughout the season. Con Knippel probably was on anybody's radar for Rookie of the Year at the start of the season. He has an excellent case to make for the award this year. I don't think it'd be the crime of the century if he got it over Cooper Flagg. But for me, being the number 1 pick overall, being so young, coming in at 18 and turning 19 during the season and doing the things he did, for me, Cooper Flagg gets the Rookie of the Year award. 96 points in a 2-game stretch here at the end of the year was really, really impressive.
Yeah, and it's funny, Bruce, you mentioned the co-Rookie of the Year award winners of the past and how that could be a potential possibility this year. And that's my vote. I think we should have co-Rookie of the Year award winners this year. Very impressed with Flagg's season. But the Dallas Mavericks went 26-56. I'm a guy that wants to value winning a little bit more. Con Knippel played a huge part in the fact that the Hornets are hosting a play-in series here on Tuesday. So I think Con should be in the mix as well. His team finished the season 6 games above 500. Really impressive stuff from Con all season long, where he shattered rookie records, 3-point shooting, and helping this Hornets team take the next step in their development. So I'm really pulling for Con to at least get the co-Rookie of the Year award, but I have a feeling I might be disappointed and more people go with Flagg. Now, the next one is the Defensive Player of the Year award. Hopefully we don't spend more than 30 seconds on this one, but I'll let you make the first pick here, Bruce.
It's Wemby, and it's going to be unanimous. I mean, anyone who has a vote and doesn't choose Wemby does not deserve to have a vote. He's 4th in rebounds, 1st in block shots by a mile. He averaged 3.1 blocks, and no other player averaged even 2. He can guard the rim and take 2 steps and guard the 3-point line. And as a third-year player, it's funny. His block shot numbers have actually gone down from his first 2 seasons. And the reason is that the rest of the league has learned, don't even try it. That is intimidation at the very highest level.
Yep. Will be anything to add?
No, he's a generational talent. He's going to dominate this award for so long. They may end up naming it after him by the time he's retired. So it's Victor Wembanyama. He is a unbelievable difference maker on the defensive end. When he's on and off the court, it's just a ridiculous. The numbers are just ridiculous. And so it's his award, as Bruce mentioned. If it's not unanimous, that'd be a real disappointment.
Well, it is on this show because I've got Wemby as well. So moving on here to Coach of the Year, Bruce.
There are 3 deserving candidates: J.B. Bickerstaff in Detroit, Joe Mazzulla in Boston, and Mitch Johnson in San Antonio. My preseason prediction was Johnson because I felt the Spurs were going to blow up this season and he'd deserve his flowers. Bickerstaff's Pistons, they led the East wire to wire and far exceeded expectations with 60 wins. Mazzulla, well, he set a tone of intensity and excellence in Boston, which led to 56 wins despite losing cornerstone players like Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, Luke Cornett, and Jason Tatum for the first 66 games. But I'm going to stick with Mitch Johnson for his work with the Spurs. But if anyone else besides Mazzulla and Bickerstaff finish in the top 3, I will be shocked.
All right. Will be?
Yeah, I think it's Joe Mazzulla. I mean, it's about time he gets all the credit that he deserves. He's been, he started to when he won a championship. The first year he came in under bad circumstances. He had a great season, but then he was criticized in the playoffs. Then he goes and wins the title. He gets a little bit better respect, but not, an elite. He's not considered one of the elite coaches. And now he loses, one of the premier players in the league for most of the season. It was, I predicted they wouldn't make the playoffs. And he goes and has the second best record in the East. He's just been doing it. He did it his way, 3-pointers galore, but he mixed in some different style with his offense there, with a more of a mid-range game. And I just think the obstacles he had to overcome and the way they played this year, I think it's Joe Mazzulla this season.
Yeah, much like yourself, Will be. I was one of the guys that didn't give the Celtics a lot of credit heading into the year. I thought it was going to be almost a wash of a season for them. So the fact that they ended up 56-26 on the year, second in the East, one of the top 4 records in all of basketball this year, it's Joe Mazzulla for me. I mean, it's not even close. I agree, Bruce, that there are some other worthy candidates, but as far as the job and the task that he had heading into the year, especially with expectations, he blew that out of the water more so than anybody else. And not dissing your pick at all, and you're probably happy to hear that I like a Celtic pick here. But Joe Mazzulla deserves his flowers, and I'm really hoping that he gets that recognition that he deserves this year.
By the way,
now with that go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of the 2 coaches we mentioned, only 2 teams in the league this year finished in the top 5 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, the Spurs and the Celtics. So you have 2 of the best teams in the league, and if either one of them gets the award, it's most deserving.
Absolutely. And with that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you later on this week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.